What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com for another edition of our daily drop podcast series. I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones. And AJ, we are here in this edition to talk about the cases for and against Cade Tyson returning to North Carolina for another season. A guy that came in last year as a transfer and just struggled, never really could get going. Not that the stats really matter. If you're a Carolina fan, you kind of already know what kind of season he had, but averaged 2.6 points. 1.1 rebounds and shot 40% from the floor. A lot of DMPs in games. And, you know, a guy who played a little bit more later in the season. And then, you know, you kind of go to that last Duke home game and, you know, and then get into the tournament and his numbers really dwindled again. He did play a few minutes against Ole Miss and San Diego State. But, yeah, just a guy that last year, the expectations in which he came in with just could never quite meet it for reasons we've discussed on other podcasts. So I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit in here, but that's not really the main point of the podcast. But I want to start with maybe the reasons why it makes sense for Cade Tyson to return to North Carolina. And I think there's a few. I think some people clicked on this video like, I can't think of a single reason he would stay based on what happened last year, but I don't think it's as simple as that. And I think there are reasons that it makes sense for him to come back. So AJ, what are maybe some of those reasons that you think it makes sense for Cade Tyson, despite really struggling last year, to come back and give it another whirl at North Carolina?
Maybe he likes it there.
Chapel Hill's a nice place.
He never looked to me like a guy who wasn't happy. He likes his teammates. When he had an opportunity to talk to us after the Florida State game, which was the only time we talked to him after our conference game, because he had an impact in that road win. Yeah. He deferred a lot of things to teammates and just winning. And I don't think he was just blowing smoke. Sometimes it sounds like canned answers or answers that sound like canned responses make it seem like guys are just kind of saying what they got to say to get through the interview. With Cade, if you go back and watch that, and you can on our YouTube channel, if you scroll down, I think he was thinking through the questions. And I think he was giving what he thought were legitimately straightforward, transparent responses. So I think he was invested. Some people wondered in December, man, he should just hit the portal now and transfer somewhere the next semester and be able to play at the end of the first semester next year somewhere else. A lot of different, you know, be a junior. A lot of people were saying he should leave, but you don't know him. I don't know him. I've talked to him quite a few times, more than several times. The only feel I have for him is that I think he's honest. I think he's transparent, and I believe that his faith is something that guides him a lot. And maybe there's such a strong relationship with Hubert in that realm, which would make sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. So perhaps there's a lot of belief that, okay, it didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. He clearly lost confidence early and just never truly got it back.
Well, a lot of it was mental. Yeah.
A lot of it was mental. And Hubert led on to this, in February when he was asked about Cade. It may have been the press conference we had a couple of days after the FSU game, where Hubert said, you know, there's blue team Cade and white team Cade. I'm paraphrasing here. Blue team Cade is with the second team, and he's playing with guys that aren't starters. So he kind of took it upon himself to be more aggressive and therefore was far more productive than when he was with the white team, when he was with starters and guys he deferred to too much. And he didn't really allow his game to come out. We saw on the court most of the time white team Cade, except some of the games he played really well, like LaSalle. That was blue team Cade, because LaSalle was the kind of team that he had been playing against for 2 years at Belmont. So there could be a thinking here that, okay, it was a struggled year. You can't get it back whether you transfer somewhere else or stay here. The year is the year. What did you learn from it? How can you improve on it? Well, going somewhere new and trying to establish yourself and be a guy there is a challenge. It wasn't smooth for him in that sense this past year. So maybe stay where they know you, stay where you know them, and understand your job is to go from blue team Cade and make that white team Cade too. Like, be that guy all the time and become someone who can help and contribute. And there's some other things too we'll discuss in a few minutes about future after basketball or after he leaves Carolina and stuff like that. But also, he plays basketball at North Carolina. That's a pretty good deal. There's a lot worse places to walk around campus saying I'm a Carolina basketball player or I'm a Stetson basketball player. Because if he were to transfer, he may not even get to the Belmont level because he struggled so much. And some people would say he was exposed. I just think a lot of it was up here. There's some physical limitations perhaps, but so much of it was up here. Remember Jacoby Gillespie, who was a big hot topic last week when he went into the portal from Maryland. He was a teammate of Cade's at Belmont. And who was the better player a lot of the time? Cade. Mm-hmm. There's a ball player there. And maybe staying in Chapel Hill and relaxing and refocusing, resetting everything. And if confident blue team Cade comes out, that's a guy that might be able to help this team next year as a rotation player every time they step on the floor.
Yeah, and then you talked about it. I agree. I think a lot of it was mental. I think it was very easy to see that. I think there is talent there. I mean, you're not one of the most highly sought after portal guys in last year's class. If you don't have talent, there's a reason North Carolina signed him. It wasn't like they just signed a guy because he didn't have any talent. But, we like the name Cade Tyson, so let's just sign him up and see what happens. There's a reason they signed him, AJ. There's talent there. I mean, you can just go.
They watched the film. It wasn't just the stats.
No, of course not.
They talked to people. It wasn't just the stats.
Yeah, there's so much evaluation that goes into this. And a lot of it is mental, you got through the storm, you reset this offseason, you continue to work on your game, and you come back next year with that more of a comfort level, more of, okay, I know what I'm getting into now. I know how this thing works. And I think I can make an impact next year being more comfortable. And again, I'm not saying he's not going to come in and start for North Carolina, but he could be your 8th, 9th man off the bench, at least to start the season, AJ, and see where you can kind of work your way up.
Maybe he starts.
Yeah, who knows?
I know people are going to laugh at that, but they brought him in to start.
I know.
I was right behind the bench for the exhibition game at Memphis. He started, played a lot of minutes. He started the second exhibition game. The whole expectation was that he would start and be a shooter. Mm-hmm. After practicing for a month and a half, he was still a starter. But Hubert lost faith, obviously, and Cade's confidence took a hit, and they never got back on that track again. These next 5 months could get him back on that track. So who's to say he won't? Remember, he was one of the top shooters in the portal last year. A lot of people wanted him. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like he came for free. It cost some money. So if that guy's still there and he just needs to come out of self-induced hibernation, then perhaps there's a piece there that no one's thinking about.
Yeah. You just, again, he's already there. If you leave Carolina, from his perspective, you're only going down. And when you look at the year he had, you're probably going way down, obviously, from a place like North Carolina. And if a lot of it is mental, like it appears to be, like it seems to be, that was, I think, a consensus amongst a lot of people, not only that cover the team, but just watching them. And it's, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to kind of see that in someone's demeanor and how they play. If you can fix that, there is the talent there to make an impact next year. So I think there's a ton of cases you consider and say, okay, didn't work out the first year, clean slate, forget about it, move on and focus on what you can control now. And that's improving your game. That's being more mentally strong and mentally prepared to withstand the criticism, the pressure, and just the sheer amount of, there's just so much that goes into playing at North Carolina, but you've experienced that for now for a year. That comfort level should be more there. Focus on that and developing your game, because again, there is talent there. I think that is the strongest case I can make for a guy like Cade Tyson returning. Now, AJ, on the flip side, let's talk about reasons why maybe it doesn't make sense for him to come back. Because I think when people click on this video, I think most fans have already made up their minds. He's not good enough. He needs to go. I think that's the consensus amongst most fans. And again, when you look at the sample size we have, that's the only conclusion you can really come to. I get that. So he struggled a lot last year. Didn't seem like he was mentally, I don't know if I want to use the word mentally tough enough, but I'll use the word mentally tough enough to adjust to playing at North Carolina. It was just so many instances where you can look and see and say, it ain't right up here. There were times where he was putting games and, physically maybe to look the part. I think he looks the part physically when he steps out on the court, but when it came to executing what was being asked of him, he wasn't doing it. And that's the reason he didn't play. And the reason why his minutes just dwindled as the season went on. So there's just a few small reasons why maybe it doesn't make sense for him to come back. But what are maybe some other reasons where you look at it and say, you know what, maybe it's best for both parties to move on. It didn't work, and sometimes that's just how it happens in the portal.
I don't know what grade it was. I don't remember because it was way back in near prehistoric times, but we all learned about the central nervous system in school.
Yeah, I don't know what grade that would be.
Yeah, and about how the brain dictates to the body pretty much. When your brain is slow and foggy and you're not confident and there's all kinds of roadblocks up here, it's going to affect everything that people see physically. So just moving on and going down to at least Missouri Valley Conference or even a little bit lower perhaps, he would instantly walk in and probably feel very confident because he'd be around the kind of guys he tore apart LaSalle. He played with tremendous confidence, was very loose, and you saw the game.
Yeah, 23 points.
Yeah. Maybe he's that guy from the get-go. He walks in and he's the fanny slapper and he's the dude because they're like, man, we got this guy from the portal. Because there are levels of Division I where they would be like that. North Carolina was like that somewhat last year, but not now. If he were to return, people are going to be like, oh, he's not going to help us. Other schools are going to think that he would. So he would go in there and instantly be confident. He would have a whole new everything. Whatever residue that hangs over from this season would no longer be an issue because it'd be gone. Mm-hmm. And fresh starts are great for a lot of people. That's one of the reasons why the portal is a good thing. Maybe not every year you can go somewhere, like force AJ Storr to stay in the same place for more than one season. But I also think having a chance to go somewhere and just be the dude would be good for someone because who wouldn't want to be that way? The reality is, if you go back, it depends on what you want. Do you just want to be a part of something or do you want to be the guy? He's already been a part of something. And maybe that, okay, I played basketball in North Carolina. I know the experience. I know what it's like to run out of that tunnel. I looked in the mirror and I saw that amazing jersey on me. I've had that experience, but I really need something more for me. Mm-hmm. I can see that move being made 100%, but it hasn't been made yet. When we're halfway through the portal right now being open, and a guy like him, you would think that if he's going to enter, he would want to allow enough time for schools to consider him. I don't know what the advantage would be waiting. But however, I should clarify, the portal closes April 22nd, but that doesn't mean kids have to be committed by April 22nd. They can commit well after that. Van Allen Lubin committed May 23rd last year. Mm-hmm. Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram were late April 2 years ago. But still, there might be some schools that would want you, but if you're not in, they're not going to take you, so they may go take somebody else instead, and suddenly your options drop even lower. So that's why. And by the way, one of the things very quickly about why coming back makes sense is after Carolina. Mm-hmm. North Carolina, one of the things it does extremely well is it gets guys jobs overseas. Carolina, Justin Pierce and Christian Keeling are still playing overseas. It gets guys jobs. They can play overseas and make good money. So if you're a Cade Tyson and you stay another year, say you play more, but it's not the kind of role you ever anticipated at North Carolina. But at this point, you're probably not going to have an NBA future. So if you go to a smaller school, what's next after a year at a Radford type place? Yeah. Will they help you get a job overseas? North Carolina can help you because they're so connected, and you might find yourself in a position where you can play for 5, 6, 7, 8 years overseas, making $300,000, $400,000 a year. It's pretty good work if you can get it. Mm-hmm. And so it might be an investment in his future afterward as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even if it isn't playing in professionally, I mean, just the connections you make in Carolina, maybe want to get into coaching, so many opportunities and the networking you get in a place like Carolina with just the sheer amount of history and connections it has to it compared to a place like a Radford, like you just threw out. I mean, there is no comparison there. So if you're thinking future from his perspective too, inside, in or out of the game, I think the case at staying in Carolina is a lot stronger than going somewhere else. If I think on the playing side, at least, if you can have more of an impact next year. And if he stays, I think there is potential for that. Now the bar is very low, so he could have a good year compared to what he had this year and still not really be producing that much for North Carolina. But like I said, AJ, maybe he's not a starter. That's fine. All indications point to him not being a starter for North Carolina if he comes back next year. But even if you're just starting off the season as an 8th, 9th guy and building that confidence and working your way into the rotation and playing more, that to me is still a massive win for Cade Tyson when you look at the year he had at North Carolina last season. So there's a lot of different angles I think you can look at it by, but I can also sit here and kind of say, you know what? There's so much pressure and criticism and everything that comes to North Carolina. I'd love to have a conversation with Cade Tyson if he stays and see what that was like last year, because AJ, I remember this. I remember Cade Tyson missed his first shot against Memphis in the exhibition game, and people were like, he's not good enough. Send him back to Belmont. I
got a text during that game.
They were everywhere.
Oh my God.
Everywhere. I mean, and in hindsight, you're kind of like, well, I guess some people were kind of right about that, but that shows what it's like playing at North Carolina, that there was always kind of the first exhibition game against Memphis, he misses a couple shots and it's like, yep, nope, send him back.
I was getting text messages during that game from people like, what the hell is this?
Hey, that doesn't happen at Belmont. That doesn't happen at Radford. That doesn't happen at Virginia Tech. This is a different animal here. Oh, I got to stop shouting at Virginia Tech because I just hate them all the time in this podcast. But it's different here. And maybe you could also make a case and say a lot of people, and I talk about this a lot of people just can't handle the pressure that comes with playing in North Carolina. And I don't put any shame on that because I will never understand it. I'm not a basketball player at North Carolina. It is tenfold what it is most other places. And sometimes people can't handle that. But I also think you can sit here and say sometimes it takes people time to handle that. And maybe after a season of Cade Tyson dealing with what he dealt with, you come out on the other side. He could be a really important, a good basketball player for North Carolina next year. All signs point to that not being the case after his first season. But that is something we've seen with guys that maybe come in as freshmen or sophomores and transfer, and it takes them a while to kind of get going. So it's a fascinating conversation, man, because I think you really can make pretty strong cases for both sides.
Yeah, there's a trade-off too. There's a balancing act with, it's tough. You're under the microscope, but man, it's got to be one of the coolest experiences.
And pressure, the pressure of playing with Carolina, it is a privilege. It is a privilege.
He's an academic kid. Look, would you want you to agree to read North Carolina or Florida Gulf Coast?
Yeah, I mean,
so there's a lot of things at play. Maybe he's an in-state kid. Maybe he just loves going to school there. There's a lot of reasons to stay. It's not all about what does your stat line look like when you leave school. The most important stat, I know this is going to sound so trite and silly, is what do you do for your life? What makes you happy? That really is it.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Mm-hmm. Again, like I said in our podcast about Drake Powney and Jackson, I hope they stay because I want to cover them for another year. I would love to see a guy like Cade Tyson stay and sort of stick it to people and produce. And I don't know if he'll ever be the guy people thought he would be, but at least approach that. I think it would be cool, and I would be very happy, interviewing him, asking him about. If I said, stick it to people, he would never go there with that because he would just deflect that totally. But, hey, you're proving yourself. What satisfaction is there to that? If you could get past that first wall and asking that question, I would imagine there's a pretty good response there if it plays out. So I root for stuff like that. I root for the kids and I root for stories. And I think that would be a pretty neat story to cover next year.
Yeah, talk about plenty of off-season bulletin board ammunition, material that Cade Tyson has to kind of focus on and say, look, didn't have the first year I wanted, but I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to prove people, you know what, I can play at this level. That if you can channel that energy in the correct way this offseason, AJ, leading into next season, mean, that's a very, very powerful thing. They can lead to, a lot better performances and a lot bigger of an impact potentially on North Carolina next year. And what a story that would be. I mean, it'd be absolutely fascinating. I mean, it really would be. And I think if you're a Carolina fan sitting here, that's what you should hope for. But I also, like I've said, I think a lot of Carolina fans they sold him after the Memphis game. There ain't no coming back now, man. So I don't know.
It was during.
Maybe they're right.
My phone was blowing up.
I had to bring it up because I remember.
I was. Well, I got to be honest with you. As we're dragging out another daily drop, we had conversations in the press room. Like, okay, didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And you're kind of watching the game, waiting when is he going to show some of this stuff? So it wasn't just fans. It wasn't just the microscope. It was also us, who do watch the game through a different lens because we don't have the emotional component and the rooting component a lot of fans do. But it was a surprise.
Yeah.
And it got to a point where, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I think I know what you're going to say, but I think it's, yeah.
I don't want to go any further with that. I mean, maybe if he leaves, I'll say it.
Yeah. We'll leave it there for now. Still a situation.
I hope he comes back because I think it could be a really cool story to write next year.
I think it can too. And I mean, having a 6'7" stretch 4. I mean, I've always thought he always looked the part. I'm like, that looks like a guy who
watch him in warm-ups.
Playing the stretch 4. Yeah, I mean,
nothing but net.
One of the best shooters in warm-ups I've ever seen. But again,
nothing but net. Then he gets in the game and the ball hits the side of the
And what is that, AJ? That shows me that it's right here.
Right here.
And that's a very powerful thing. If you can fix that, change that, I think he can make an impact in North Carolina. I'm not saying he's going to be some all ACC first, team, second team, third team kind of guy.
Just help every time you step on the floor.
Even if he came back next year, AJ, and averaged 7, 8, 9 points a game.
That would be a tremendous story.
Yeah. And that would help North Carolina. Again, I'm not saying he'd be a starter, but that helps North Carolina having a guy like him. And this team last year was calling out for a stretch 4 to step up. And as soon as Jalen Withers kind of did it, you're like, oh, wow, this team's actually a lot better now. If you can get a guy like Cade Tyson last year to do that, maybe we're having a completely different story, but it didn't happen. Maybe he comes back next year and has some kind of impact. Maybe he leaves. Maybe this podcast never sees a light of day, AJ, because these things are so fluid. So who the heck knows, man? I hope it does.
Podcast that went twice as long as we said it would go.
Yeah, if not, we just wasted 25 minutes again. So we're getting out of here. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. Hopefully you see this podcast at some point. Appreciate you guys watching. As always, make sure you go to YouTube, subscribe, not link below. Just hit below, hit the notification bell, hit that subscribe button. Head on over to Facebook, trying to hit 15K. Well on our way there. Go ahead and like us. And on Twitter, we're trying to hit 40,000 as well. 40,000 followers, that is. Both links in the description. Head on over there and like both of those. And we'll be giving away what, AJ? Some more subscriptions?
More subscriptions. We've already given some away over on Facebook. I have to announce the ones on YouTube.
Yeah, we hit 20K.
Yeah, and we're giving away a couple that are 2 years. So, and we're going to do a bunch with Twitter. We got to get Twitter going, man. We got to push for Twitter.
Yeah.
Well, Twitter is really slow playing along here. We got to get that rolling.
We do. We definitely do. We have to get that rolling a little bit more. That's one of our all season.
Follow us now. You might win free THI, period.
Yeah. Who the heck knows, man? Who the heck knows? Yeah. But again, a big thank you to people who subscribed on YouTube. Next stop's 25K. So you can help us by hitting the subscribe button below. Appreciate it, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Thanks.